The crowd at Indian Wells barely had time to process what they were seeing. One of the biggest stars in tennis was suddenly walking toward the chair umpire, shaking her head. And moments later, the match was over just like that. But here's the twist that's making tennis fans argue all over the internet right now. Because before the retirement happened, one young player had already taken complete control of the match. And that player was Alex Eala. And what unfolded on that court might end up being remembered as one of the biggest turning points in her career. The matchup itself already had plenty of intrigue before the first ball was even struck. On one side of the net stood Coco Gauff, one of the most recognizable stars in women's tennis today, a Grand Slam champion and a player who has spent years establishing herself as one of the elite competitors on the WTA Tour. On the other side stood a rising talent who has been quietly building momentum over the last few seasons. A 20-year-old from the Philippines who many tennis insiders have been watching very closely. And if you follow the sport closely, you already know that Alex Eala's name has been circulating more and more in conversations about the future of women's tennis. But what happened during this match at the BNP Paribas Open at Indian Wells Tennis Garden in Indian Wells, California might have pushed that conversation to a completely different level because from the very first games of the match, something felt different. The rallies were short, the pressure was relentless, and the momentum was moving in only one direction. Right away, Alex Eala came out playing aggressive, fearless tennis. Her returns were deep, her ground strokes were sharp, and most importantly, she looked completely calm on one of the biggest stages in the sport. Meanwhile, Coco Gauff was struggling to find her rhythm. Now, if you've watched Gauff play before, you know that she's one of the most explosive athletes in tennis. Her movement is usually one of her greatest strengths. She can chase down balls that most players wouldn't even attempt to reach. But during this match, something looked off. The timing wasn't quite there. The movement looked slightly hesitant. And as the games continued, it became clear that Alex Eala was sensing the opportunity. Game after game, point after point, the pressure kept building. And before many fans in the stadium even realized what was happening, the scoreboard told a shocking story. 6-0. That opening set ended 6-0 in favor of Alex Eala. Now, let's pause there for a moment because this part of the story is extremely important. Even though the match eventually ended due to injury, the reality is that Eala had already completely dominated the first set against one of the biggest names in the sport. That kind of start doesn't happen by accident. It happens because a player comes in with a very clear game plan, executes it perfectly, and refuses to back down from the moment. And that's exactly what Alex Eala was doing. Her baseline play was sharp and confident. She was hitting deep into the corners, forcing Gauff to defend constantly. Whenever an opportunity appeared, she stepped forward and took control of the rally. It was disciplined tennis. It was aggressive tennis. And maybe most impressive of all, it was fearless tennis. Now, here's where the story takes a complicated turn. Because during that first set, some fans began noticing signs that Coco Gauff might be dealing with physical discomfort. Her movement didn't look quite as explosive as usual. Between points, there were moments where she seemed to stretch and adjust her body language in ways that suggested something wasn't feeling right. At first, it wasn't completely obvious. Athletes deal with minor issues during matches all the time. Sometimes it's just fatigue. Sometimes it's just a temporary tweak, but when the second set started, the situation quickly escalated. Alex Eala continued exactly where she left off. She broke serve early and jumped out to a 22 lead. And that's when everything suddenly stopped. Coco Gauff walked toward the umpire, spoke briefly, and made the difficult decision to retire from the match. Just like that, the contest was over. And no dramatic final rally. No comeback attempt, no long third set battle. Instead, the match officially ended with Alex Eala advancing to the next round due to retirement, and a reaction across the tennis world was immediate. Some fans were shocked. Some fans were disappointed that the match ended early, and many fans began asking the same question. What exactly happened to Coco Gauff? Now, as of right now, the exact details about the injury haven't been fully confirmed publicly. In situations like this, players and their teams often take time to evaluate the issue before giving a detailed update. So, it's important to be careful here. Speculating about injuries can easily turn into rumors. What we do know is that Gauff appeared to be dealing with physical discomfort, and she ultimately decided it wasn't safe to continue the match. And in professional tennis, That decision is never taken lightly. Players at this level are some of the most competitive athletes in the world. Walking off the court mid-match is something they avoid unless continuing could make the injury worse. But while much of the attention naturally shifted toward Gauff's health, there's another side of the story that deserves just as much recognition. Because Alex Eala had already been playing incredible tennis before the retirement happened. And that performance is exactly why this moment feels so important for her career. For fans in the Philippines, this victory carries a special kind of meaning. Tennis has been growing steadily in the country, but it hasn't always had a large presence at the very top of the professional rankings. That's why Alexa's rise has been followed so passionately by Filipino sports fans. For years, she's been viewed as one of the brightest young prospects in the sport. Her junior career already hinted at what might be possible. She built a reputation for strong baseline play, tactical intelligence, and the ability to stay calm under pressure. But transitioning from junior success to the professional tour is never easy. The WTA Tour is one of the most competitive environments in sports. Every week, players face opponents who have years of experience and world-class skills. Breaking through at that level takes patience, resilience, and a lot of learning. And slowly but surely, Alex Eala has been proving that she belongs there. Matches like this one at Indian Wells are exactly the kind of opportunities that define careers. Even though the match ended early, the performance still sent a powerful message. It showed that she can step onto a massive stage and compete confidently against one of the biggest stars in the game. And that confidence matters because tennis isn't just about technique or athleticism. It's also about belief. When a young player realizes they can go toe-to-toe with elite opponents, something shifts mentally. Suddenly, the big names don't feel untouchable anymore. They feel beatable, and that psychological shift can be the beginning of a major breakthrough. Now, here's the question that tennis fans are starting to debate. Was this simply an unfortunate injury situation for Coco Gauff? Or was this also the moment where Alex Eala announced herself as a serious contender on the tour? The honest answer might be somewhere in the middle. Injuries are part of sports and they can change matches instantly, but the scoreboard from that first set is still there. 6-0. That doesn't happen unless one player is executing their strategy extremely well. And it doesn't happen unless the opponent is under constant pressure, which brings us to another interesting point. The style of tennis that Alex Eala played during this match could actually create problems for many top players moving forward. Her aggressive returning forces opponents to start rallies on defense. Her deep ground strokes push players far behind the baseline. And when she's confident, she isn't afraid to step inside the court and take control. Those are the traits of a player who can disrupt the rhythm of established stars. And that's exactly what seemed to be happening against Coco Gauff before the retirement. Looking ahead, the big question becomes what comes next for Alex Eala in this tournament. The BNP Paribas Open is often called the fifth Grand Slam because of its prestige, its massive draw, and the level of competition involved. Advancing deeper into an event like this can change a player's career trajectory. Get brings more attention. It brings tougher opponents, and it brings opportunities to prove that a breakthrough performance wasn't just a one-time moment for Alexa. The next rounds will be another chance to show that her rise is real. Meanwhile, the tennis world will also be watching closely for updates on Coco Gauff. Injuries can be unpredictable and fans everywhere will be hoping that the issue isn't serious. Because when Gauff is healthy and playing her best tennis, she's one of the most exciting athletes in the sport. Her speed, her fighting spirit, and her ability to perform under pressure have already produced some incredible moments in recent years. So, the hope across the tennis community is that she'll recover quickly and return to competition soon. But on this particular night in Indian Wells, the spotlight ultimately shifted to someone else. A 20-year-old player who walked onto the court with confidence, played fearless tennis, and walked off with one of the most significant wins of her career. And that player was Alex Eala. Now, here's something I want to ask all of you watching this. Go. You think this moment marks the true breakout of Alex Eala on the WTA Tour? Or do you think we need to see more deep runs before calling it a breakthrough? Because tennis history is filled with moments like this where a rising star suddenly captures the spotlight. Sometimes it's the beginning of a long journey to the top, and sometimes it's just the first chapter of a much bigger story that unfolds over the next few seasons. Personally, I think this match will be remembered as an important stepping stone. Not just because of the result, but because of the way Alex Eala played. The confidence, the aggression, the composure. Those are the qualities that champions build their careers on. And if she continues developing at this pace, the rest of the WTA Tour might need to start paying very close attention because the next generation of tennis stars is already arriving. And based on what we saw at Indian Wells, Alex Eala might be one of the most exciting names leading that charge. But as always, I want to hear your thoughts. Was this simply an unfortunate injury ending for Coco Gauff? Or did Alex Eala prove she's ready to challenge the biggest names in tennis? Let me know what you think. And if you love following the biggest stories, rising stars, and unexpected drama from the world of tennis, stick around because here on Red Dust Report, we break down the moments that could shape the future of the report.